All right.
There you go.
Awesome. Now I've got people in the waiting room. Okay, this is all new to me, so I apologize.
You'll just need to pull up your slide, your PowerPoint again, and you should be good to go. So you'll go to switch to shared content up at the top in that pin.
You are screen sharing. And that pin, how do I?
There we go. Can you see your PowerPoint?
Yes.
We're good to go.
All right. Thank you. So I apologize. I'm not real skilled in Zoom yet.
I'm not either.
Hangouts are easier. Yes. So Tanya's here with me, and she and I have worked together on the presentation. So I asked her if she'd be willing to jump in and help me out. So I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself.
I'm starting my 7th year at Franklin County High School as a JAG specialist. Before that, I was an elementary teacher for 17 years before coming over to Franklin County and joining them with JAG and stuff. My wonderful husband of almost 16 years, my 2 little dogs, Little Bit and Butterscotch, and absolutely love what I get to do with JAG.
So when I was substitute teaching, okay, well, I want to back up before we do this. But when I was actually teaching high school, I got really frustrated because I felt like I was spending time teaching a curriculum and teaching content, and I wasn't really able to teach the whole student. And there was so many different students that needed different accommodations, and it was just really pretty overwhelming. So a lot of what we do with Universal Design for Learning, I'm just starting to hear about this, let's see, last year, the year before in the school programs. This kind of does what puts a name to what I thought we needed to be doing all along. So Universal Design for Learning, my goal is that you'll understand and that we'll be able to explain why UDL is critical to help students thrive, to help all students thrive, not just 1 or 2. I hope that we can understand the foundational elements of Universal Design for Learning, that we'll be able to assess our own practices. And I've been working on UDL for a year now, and I mean, it's a process, and it's a slow process. It's not a quick thing. And then maybe we can create a next step for UDL implementation in individual classrooms. Just give you some ideas of places where to start.
And with looking at it too, it's not necessarily a new concept, that maybe it's just a new name of putting it on it, because when you go back and kind of look at it, you probably are doing a lot of these things, but it's just keeping us in check and making sure that we are doing it to make sure we're meeting all the needs of all of our students.
And so I'm just curious, how many of you have experience with UDL, or who has heard of UDL? Where are you at on UDL? Have you heard of it? You have experience with it? Are you an old pro at it? If you want to just maybe put it in the chat box so we kind of know who we're talking to. Can we see the chat box when it comes up? Maybe. Okay. New. I see lots of news so far. Okay. Okay, so I didn't want to go into lots of basics if everybody was a seasoned pro. And I'm not a seasoned pro yet either. So I'm good. I'm glad. All right. So if we think about universal design, go on to the next slide. Okay. Go on to the next slide, Bowman. Okay. When we think about universal design, think back to the beginning, like back to the 1980s, when we started doing things in architecture. Okay, so this is the beginning. Late 20th century, Ron Mason and his colleagues, they came up with 7 universal design principles, when they're applied proactively to building design, it results in structures that are accessible to all users. So the designs and the principles remove the physical barriers in the environment that help the architects meet the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. Now, I remember when the ADA was enacted. There were so many buildings and workplaces that had to be retrofitted and to meet those guidelines. Now, you know, we're 2022, the design elements just seem normal to me. You know, it seems odd if I'm out and about and I don't see the push to open button for the elevator, or I don't see the ramps to get into buildings, and someone else is wanting in, they don't know how to let them in. So think about that's where it all started. Now, this is a little bit more universal design, but this gets where it all started.
So I want you to kind of look at this picture here. And in a manner, these pictures kind of demonstrate the difference between equality in our lesson plans, the equity in it, and the universal design. With equality, yes, they're all given the exact same tool in front of them, but it doesn't meet every single one of their needs. They're all being treated equally, but is that really truly fair in say? Because sometimes being treated equally is not what they necessarily need. It's what can we do to help each individual student? And what could we have done differently in this picture? In the next slide, everyone gets exactly what they need. So we can focus on the scaffolds, the support. What examples would these be? Extended time for tests and assignments, tests that could be read to students, fewer options and multiple choices. And you see all of these like in IEPs and in 504s, and sometimes just knowing your students. I think that's the most important part of the UDL, is understanding the needs in each and every one of your students, because they may not have those IEPs or 504s, but they still need that leg up for whatever reason it may be. So yeah, you're given equality, but is it really helping the needs that they need? So then we could go to the next one, where we just make it simpler. We've tried to fix the kids instead of actually removing the barriers. Fixing the students doesn't seem to work well, and it does cause a lot of frustration, as not only as us, but even for the students too, because they don't always want to be fixed. Try imagine having 20 students in your classroom with 20 different accommodations to help the student access your lessons. I know I would go absolutely crazy, Celeste would go absolutely crazy to try to come up with that many different ways for your students to access just the lesson itself. But what if I could design my lesson so a student could access the information in a manner that is appropriate for them and can also demonstrate their understanding and mastery of the concept in a manner that works for them? Wow, that would be absolutely amazing, right? And that's where universal design for learning is such a simple concept. So we need to figure out how to provide access to all students. We're in the design stages of our lessons. And this is going to require, yes, a little bit extra work on your part to start off with, but in the end, it will make your classroom more effective, and it's also going to make your students probably even appreciate you that much more too, because they don't want to be pointed out. Like, okay, I'm short, I need that extra step up. I get that I'm fun size, so I definitely need the extra leg up stuff too of the scaffolding. But they don't want that drawn out and put on that special little, okay, I need extra help. So how can we make it all the way equal, all the way across the board, accessible for everybody?
Okay. You want to do this one?
Yeah. All right. So here's another way I want you guys to think about it. We're going to have a dinner party. Everybody likes to eat, right? I mean, yes. So we're going to have a group of friends over, and we have to plan the menu. The only thing is we have some different dietary needs. So let's look at their needs. We have someone that needs gluten-free, another one's sugar-free, another one is lactose intolerant, one's a vegan, one's on Weight Watchers, some guest drink and others don't. And there's also 3 children between the ages of 2, 7, and 12. Now, how are you going to serve your food for your dinner party? Anybody have any suggestions?
Either unmute yourselves or put it in the chat box. We're good either way.
I can't hear. Is it because my blood is not on?
Any ideas how you're going to meet everybody's dinner needs?
I'm just gonna give him some water.
Kinder.
Give them some water. All right, no food for you.
I'm just kidding, sorry.
That would be an easy way to do it. Yes, everybody gets water.
Bring your own. Bring your own food.
Sorry, y'all.
I mean, for me, I'm not, a good short order cook. I mean, yes, you could order a lot of different foods to try to have that done. But another way that would be an easy way to do it is just do a buffet. That way you'll have options that can meet everyone's needs. They can then pick and choose what they want and don't want. Do kind of like a potluck. Maybe they bring what they are comfortable with eating and stuff. But that's kind of like thinking of your classroom of all of those students with all of those different things that barriers, whatever it may be, or challenges, that how can we give them the best meal that's going to give them what they need.
So now we're going to, let's compare this chart. And I sent these all to Christine. I sent my slide deck to Christine. Apparently I didn't share it correctly because it was restricted. So I'll try and share it again so we can get it out to everybody. But this looks at differentiated instruction, traditional teaching, and UDL. So UDL is our buffet. Okay, that's the one that's going to address everybody's needs. It's very proactive, right? We got to plan ahead. We've got to think about this. We're anticipating everything. Whereas differentiated instruction, that's us being a short order cook. Okay, here's our lesson, but then you need this. You need, the lesson read to you. You need it in writing. You need extended time on your assignments or on your tests. And then traditional teaching, that's our casserole. That's just kind of, here it is, you get it or you don't. Eat it or you don't. So this chart kind of summarizes it all. The best part, what I like about UDL is it helps me, I have to evaluate everything. I evaluate my classroom, I evaluate my teaching environment, I evaluate the culture of my class. So things may change, for each one of my classes based on my classroom culture and on my students. And it seems like a lot of work, but really it's not, okay? It's a different way of thinking about things. I have to be very intentional. My instruction has to be designed before my students get there. So this is all done when I'm designing my lessons at the beginning of the school year, during the summer. I focus on students' variabilities, right? I'm not looking at the quote unquote average student because we know there's not truly an average student. There's not a normal student. I have to focus on the variety in my classroom. I have to plan for those students in the margins, right? I have to plan for those students who struggle with different learning styles. I have to plan for those students who are gifted and for whom instruction and learning comes very easily. And I have to work to remove barriers. And that's what JAG's all about, right? We're removing barriers. And we got more students waiting in the lobby. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with everybody. Thank you. So our goal, well, sorry, I'm pointing to my screen and you guys can't see me point. So the next slide shows what the guidelines for you, I'm sorry? Guidelines for UDL are. Okay, we want to provide multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, multiple means of action and expression. And at the bottom, you'll see what our goal is. Our goal is to have students who are expert learners. And if they're expert learners, they're going to be purposeful and motivated, resourceful and knowledgeable, strategic and goal-oriented. Now that's our goal. Are we going to get everybody there? No, we're not, but we're working towards that, okay? So, you know, multiple means of engagement, multiple means of getting students interested. We've got to get them interested in the lessons before they're going to really benefit from them. Multiple means of representation. How are we explaining the lesson? How are we displaying the information? And then multiple means for them to show that they've mastered it. All right.
So here's kind of another way for you to look at it, is thinking about your brain and a heating system. You have your why, which most of the time your students are always asking, why do I have to learn this? How many times do we get that question in a day? What are we learning and how are we learning? Why is we don't just see the temperature, the furnace won't fire up. So why do I need to do this? You're providing a purpose for it. What is the actual fire that produces the heat? The recognition networks under what extract and makes the meaning of the content. The how is the actual blower, which the thermostat has been set, fire's been lit, and now we can deliver the heat. This is the students delivering the evidence of what they know using multiple means of actions and expressions. And
okay, so this is when we look at the access level. Okay, there are things that you're going to do in your environment or your lessons that ensure any learner can participate. This is your welcome mat. Okay, so this is not just, I just lost my thought. Okay, this is teacher driven. This is getting the students interested. How are you going to get them interested? You know, you want it to be relevant to their life. You want it to have value to them, and you want it to be authentic. Also, when you are planning these lessons, just determine how you're going to minimize threats and distractions, right? Sometimes students can feel threatened, not like physically threatened, but just not comfortable participating in their lesson. Multiple means of perception. How are you going to display the information? How are you going to present? Are there alternatives? An example, my son has some visual disturbances, and I haven't had to work with a school before on a 504 for one of my children, but I'm going to work with the school on a 504 because his visual disturbances interfere with him reading the board, reading papers, reading books. So we need to figure out another way for him to receive that information. So we need to offer alternatives. You know, is it in writing? Do we provide our notes in writing? Do we provide videos? Do we provide books on tape, you know, whatever, not really tape, but audio books? Then various methods for them to respond, you know, and for them to respond to your hook, to your interest getter, to your welcome mat. You know, do they have to talk to you? Can they do it on a Jamboard? Can they provide it in writing on the board? You know, does it have to be verbal? You know, and that's just one example. That part's teacher driven. The build level, these are the things that you're going to do in your environment or in your lessons that ensure that the learners have the tools and fluencies they need to do the work. The students driving this, teachers supporting this. Okay, so do they have the stamina? Do they understand the vocabulary? Do they understand what the symbols mean? You know, can they decode the text? Can they decode the math? What about other language barriers? You know, do you have English language learners? Are there ways you need to support that? But the students need to be driving this, okay? You need to think of ways to get them to drive this boat. And then the internalize it. So we need to provide them opportunities to self-regulate. They need to understand the expectations. I'm having trouble seeing. We need to help them with their coping skills, their strategies. They need to be doing self-assessment. You know, how do we get them to assess their understanding and ask for our assistance? We need to help them with comprehension and executive functioning. The executive functioning is a big one that I see students challenged with. You know, goal setting. How do we set an appropriate goal? You know, how do we start with our goal and work backwards for little goals? You know, how do we do this planning? That's something that we really need to model for them. And again, here's our goal. They're riding the bike by themselves. They're expert learners. You know, are we expert learners? Are we expert learners? If we're not, we need to figure out how to become expert learners. So
we have a little activity that we want you all to do. I'm sure we're all tired. We don't need to just sit here and just listen to Celeste and I talk. We need some input from you all. So I want you guys to kind of think about a group of students that you have in your classroom right now. I want you to brainstorm. If you're in a room with other people, please feel free to do this with others or by yourself. But I want you to come up with a list of possible barriers that these students in your class might have that, you know, could prevent them from being able to access the extra curriculum, the project, whatever it may be. Because I mean, there's so many times it's just so easy. Hey, everybody's doing a presentation. But does a presentation really work for everybody? Is everybody really truly giving their best in a presentation? Or could they just do it better in just making the PowerPoint and not having to get up and present it? Mm-hmm. So I want you to come up with a list of barriers. I would like for at least 5 people. I'm asking for a number now, 5 people that can share with how you could maybe change things around a little bit and make it accessible for that group of 5 students that would work for everybody. Does that make sense?
I'm gonna take what, 5 minutes?
Give you 5 minutes and see if you can come up with list these barriers and, you know, share how we can make it easier for a group of students. I'm going to start off, I'll give you a good example here. Because all of my students, of course, use Chromebooks and everything. I do have some students that are limited on the amount or whatever Wi-Fi they can get onto. A simple site that I would want them to look up even for a job, even housing, any of that kind of stuff is completely blocked for them for reasons that's out of my control. Can't always get it unblocked right there at the instant that you need it. So how do I get around that? Because I want them to do the same project as everyone else. And sometimes they can use their cell phones. Other times they can't. So that may mean I bring them up to my computer and we work on it together. Or I let them team up with someone else and they can maybe look up on their computer. But again, that student is still being watched to make sure they're not getting onto things that are blocked for them for the reasons and stuff. So that's just kind of a small example to kind of maybe get your brains kind of working and churning this early on a Tuesday morning. So I need y'all to kind of come up with it. We'll give you about 5 minutes. And then I'm looking for 5 people to share with what we got. All right.
Absolutely. I was looking, I was gonna, I don't. Well, there's that.
Does anyone have any questions as we're giving you guys this few minutes to work on this?
Here we got some music for the last couple minutes. Unmuted. I hope you guys are reading the comments too. I'm seeing a lot of good ideas. Okay, I think we're at the end of our 5 minutes. If not, stop me and I'll wait longer. I see lots of great ideas, lots of places where we're doing UDL anyway, even if we didn't have the terminology. So hopefully having the terminology now, knowing the concept of UDL is out there, maybe it'll give you places to go if you're struggling for some ideas, because I know I'm always looking for new ideas. Things I saw in here was lazy kids, you know, or they're unmotivated. And they may truly be unmotivated, but why, or they may appear to be unmotivated. Why? Why are they tired? You know, why are they sleeping all the time? You know, so there's a barrier there that we don't know what it is yet, right? I know in my helping with our bilingual program at Seymour, what I found was we had some students that were tired. They wanted to sleep through class, and especially the ones that were my first period class, but it was home life, or it was, they were working full time. Okay, so I had high school students who were coming to school, they were going home for a bit, and then they were going to a full-time third shift job. And when they got off work, they came to school. You know, and so that's a barrier that we had to figure out, how do we work around? And quite honestly, there were days it's, you know, okay, I've got information other ways for you, so you've got a test next block. It's more important to me that you're rested for the test. You know, the shy public speaking, that seems to be a big one. And it is, and I like the ideas that I'm seeing where we let them present from where they are, or maybe we pair them with somebody else who is a confident presenter so they don't have to present, or maybe they could work together to present. You know, and eventually we get them to where they are confident in presenting on their own. You know, so I guess it's evaluating what's our goal for the lesson, right? Is the lesson intended to demonstrate English skills, right? If my lesson is intended for them to demonstrate their understanding of English grammar, written English grammar, then I need to have them write an essay. If my lesson is for them to demonstrate their understanding of the different types of attire that are appropriate in different business situations, do I need to have them write an essay on it? Probably not. We could have a classroom discussion about it. We could do a PowerPoint and then not present it. I saw someone say that, you know, they had the students make the PowerPoint and then the specialist presented it. Great idea, you know, or have them co-present it, you know, do group presentations. If part of the goal is, part of the objective of the lesson is to get them learning those presentation skills, absolutely. But, you know, evaluate what the real intention for the lesson is. Sometimes writing is easy, right? Write an essay, write an answer. Then I've got a student who doesn't have an arm, you know, he's missing from here, you know, here down. So there are some things that can be challenges for him physically. Now he's come around it, you know, but again, we've evaluating. Anybody have anything they want to share on that? Looking for my 5 people. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start with one real quick. We are very honored to have Mr. Sean Brames in our presence here at Franklin County with us today. So Sean's going to join us on camera and share some of his, and hopefully that will get you started. And that means I still need 4 more people to speak up. Come on, if we're on here, right, y'all can join in, and I need 4 people. Sorry, Mr. Sean, it's all you.
Greetings out there, friends, everybody. Good to see everyone.
Good morning.
Good to be here in Franklin County, one of my favorite places. So in a long career in education, both at the secondary level and the post-secondary level, there are some really major barriers that I have noticed. And I have worked with students from all over the state of Indiana during that time. And this is not an exhaustive list by any means. It's just some of the more notable ones that I've come across. They include previous academic failure, a general lack of confidence, the social anxiety. Another one is underdeveloped critical thinking skills. You also have to pay attention to any physical or cognitive disabilities that may be present as well. In addition, a big one is a general lack of support at home. That one cannot be understated as well. And again, having worked with that 17 to 23-year-old age range, fatigue is a big one. They do not get the 8 hours of sleep, and they all pretty much skip breakfast. I can assure you that. So those are just the few things that I have noticed. Thank you all for your time this morning.
Thanks, Sean. We appreciate that. Okay, who else? Let's unmute yourself and go ahead and start talking.
I'm going to go ahead and share something. You know, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. With my students in particular, they have to feel like they're a part of me and I'm a part of them. Mm-hmm. And so when I make them more comfortable being a family, mm-hmm. okay, they are willing to present or do anything else. An example right now, I'm here in our building, we're having summer school, and I have 4 or 5 kids that are sitting in my room, and at least 3 of them are JAG kids, and the other 2 are not. They're just friends of JAG kids, okay? Mm-hmm. So that's my new recruitment of 2 new kids for next year. So you have to make our kids comfortable. If they are not comfortable, they are not going to perform for you. Hi, Sean.
Love you, Miss Drake.
I love you too.
An excellent example of that culture that we, in our environment, that we need to evaluate. And my kids are the same way. Mm-hmm. If they're not comfortable with me and with the class, yeah, they're not going to do what we need them to do.
So it's building those relationships and knowing your kiddos. I mean, they're not just my students, they're my kiddos. And I always want to know what's going on in their lives, and they in return ask about the same. And those are the relationships that, you're right, then you can get them to do pretty much anything that you ask. Mm-hmm. And I tell them the same thing. I'm not going to ask you anything to do that I wouldn't do myself. Mm-hmm. And getting up in front of people sometimes is difficult. An example, I had a student that refused to get up in front of the class to do a simple presentation. I said, you know what, I'll work with you. Stand here at my desk. Just stand here at my desk and you present it. Just, it's you and I, no one else is listening. No one else is paying a lick of attention to you. She did it. And the very next time she was up in front of the class presenting. Mm-hmm. So it's sometimes with UDL, anything that we do, you just kind of have to make those modifications of what works. Mm-hmm. And you will be surprised at what because the kids are resilient. They'll do mm-hmm. things that will totally surprise you.
Butch mentioned on here, he makes his due dates on bigger assignments open-end. And I love that. I do that too. You know, students have enough stress with their other classes and we want them to succeed there. So making JAG less stressful, you know, so that the due dates are not as firm sometimes can really help them overcome those barriers. And then there's the argument that we're not teaching them to meet deadlines. So while I do make my barrier or my due dates flexible, we do discuss deadlines and like what would happen if I missed my deadlines. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
And I love it when JAG students bring their friends with them, because yes. I have the same thing when they come in my room, and I even have a closet in my room that has tons of snacks and stuff, and I feed, I think, almost the whole entire school all the time.
She may feed me and Sean later because we found the closet.
So, you know, having those things that makes them want to come to your room makes mm-hmm. it easier too. But I'm looking for 3 more.
I was going to chime in and say one thing I've noticed is the kids are really good at like all things technology as far as social media. However, sometimes putting a PowerPoint together or something like that is really overwhelming. So having them, either teaching them how to do that, you know, on a step-by-step process, or having another option for them, whether it's a brochure or a poster or something, be a good accommodation.
Yeah, it would. Tanya and I talked about that the other day. You know, we do career presentations because that is part of our CDC. But if there's a student that's not going to be presenting in the career presentation, then we, you know, I give them options. We do brochures. We do a poster. You know, we can do an electronic presentation. They can do an electronic brochure. So I like that. It helps so much. And then the ones that are comfortable with the presentation, I can pick them to go to CDC. All right, 2 more. I'm waiting for Bart to end this soon.
I'll share, I'll jump in.
Awesome.
So someone already shared kind of how they create a culture of family in their classroom. Something that my students look forward to that we've incorporated is like these Real Talk Tuesdays where we kind of sit in a talking circle and we talk about real talk. Some students, you know, it can be extreme. Some things, you know, go to being like real events or like current events and things like that are going on in life or in school. But as the year progressed, I allowed them to navigate facilitating the conversation. So it's like completely student-led where as I used to bring the topics or ideas to the circle, and it gets to the place spring semester where they run it themselves. So that dynamic of ownership and student leadership kind of gradually growing from my talking circles definitely enhances a culture of family and community and support for students.
And the real talk part gives them that safe environment. You know, they know it's safe. They're comfortable. Okay. So when you get, okay, we skipped that. When you get the rubric, the presentation, you'll see I've got ideas for continued growth and learning. And then I've added tools and resources, some different podcasts and Guide to Universal Design for Learning, some books to read. I'm a big reader. So in fact, I've got more books at home to read than I'll ever read in my life, I think. But just some different ideas. If you're interested in diving deeper into this, it's here. Bart, are we done at 10:45?
I'm just gonna say one more thing before Bart does that too, is that I really appreciate the ones that stepped in and shared and also put in, you know, the chat and stuff too, is I said, I think a lot of us are already doing a lot of these things. As I kind of dove in this with Celeste and everything, I realized I'm doing this more than what I think that I'm doing it, but I never really had a name per se for it. So it does get us thinking about how to better service our students and making their learning experience more valuable. I mean, how many times do we have our students come in and say, why am I learning that in math? Why am I learning that in history or whatever else? And when we have them buy into it and they have a little bit of say-so in it, and it kind of gives them ownership to it and then wanting them to do it and understand the reasons that they're doing it. Like I said, we're not trying to give you guys extra work to do, because trust me, we all know that we don't need any more extra because we have a lot on our plates anyway, but we just want to kind of give you guys some options of ways to make it a little bit easier and maybe a little bit better for our students. Questions? I think I'm past my time. Questions, comments, Bart? I think if I click stop share, did that get it back to you?
Yep, I'm the host now.
Right.
I'm going to click the stop recording. Thanks for everybody for participating in this event, and we will see you at the next one. And great job, Celeste and Tanya.
Yep. See y'all.